its long-range rocket launch site.
We also heard from Steve Biegun saying it doesn't have to be this way. We're very aware that in the next several days we could see some kind of provocation from North Korea, but they are ready to talk. So we know he is here in the region today. He's here tomorrow potentially as well before he heads to Japan.
In Houston, a person is in custody for questioning after dozens of people had to be decontaminated, a precaution after the FBI says trace amounts of mercury was spilled at 3 locations. Houston Fire Chief Sam Pena says crews are cleaning up the spills. Pre-market trading shows stock futures higher on Wall Street ahead of the opening bell. Chinese markets had record highs in their Monday trading on news the U.S. and China may have a preliminary trade deal agreed to. I'm Michael Toscano.
I'm here today with... Why all the top-tier experts? Because business is not a magic trick.
Give us a sense of the economic backdrop.
Bloomberg Markets.
Which financial records are these?
Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. It is 6:47 on Wall Street, and futures are higher this morning. Let's go to the First Word breaking news desk for today's morning call. Here's Bill Maloney. Bill, good morning.
Hey, and good morning, Karen. That's right. U.S. futures are in the green right now. Dow futures up 55 points. S&P's gained 12, and NASDAQ futures rise by 35. The U.S. 10-year yield at 1.84%. Gold is up a point, and Shanghai rose 0.6% overnight. Well, European markets are also trading higher, led by 2% gains in the U.K. Back in the U.S. on the economic front at 8:30, Empire Manufacturing at 9:45, market U.S. manufacturing PMI, and at 10 o'clock, the NAHB Housing Market Index. In other news, Boeing may suspend production of the 737 MAX as uncertainty grows, and utility PG&E is plunging 23% pre-market after California rebuffed its overhaul plan. In deal news, IFF will buy DuPont's nutrition unit for $26 billion. And wrapping things up, Goldman Sachs was raised to buy over at Citigroup. Pepsi cut to equate at Morgan Stanley, and Parker Hannifin raised overweight over at Wells Fargo. Live from the First Breaking News Desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Karen?
All right, Bill, thank you. To hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg, type squawk on your terminal, SQUAWK, and that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael.
Karen, the House of Representatives is preparing for another week of contentious debates as the 2 articles of impeachment will move to the House floor to set up a Senate trial. It comes as Senate Democrats demand that members of the Trump administration, including White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney and former National Security Advisor John Bolton, testify in the Senate impeachment trial. Several aides to Democratic Congressman Jeff Van Drew of New Jersey resigned as the lawmaker prepares to switch to the Republican Party, according to a signed resignation letter. In the NFL, the Giants won. The 49ers lost, along with the Redskins and Raiders, who played their final scheduled game at the Oakland Coliseum. The Patriots won. The Colts and Saints play tonight. In the NBA, the Nets won. The Knicks lost, along with the Warriors. Finally, from daybreak on the Bloomberg, Fortnite players got a sneak peek of a scene from Disney's Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker in the video game. Players were embedded in a scene with the Millennium Falcon being chased by fighter jets while several Star Destroyers loomed high in the sky. They could choose the color of their lightsaber. And Nathan, after the internet said, "Oh, Lordy," they promptly freaked out.
Wow. So you're saying the Millennium Falcon is going to be chased in the new Star Wars. Big time spoiler there, Michael.
No.
Nice work.
Thank you very much, if I cared. Global news 24 hours a day on air on Quick Take by Bloomberg. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg.
I know you bought your ticket like 3 weeks ago. Thank you, Michael. We are live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio where it's 6:50 on Wall Street. Time to check what's going on in D.C., where for just the 3rd time in U.S. history, the House is set to vote to impeach a president of the United States this week. The Democratic chairman of the House Judiciary and Intelligence Committees went on ABC's this week to explain what they see as their constitutional duty. Judiciary Chairman Gerald Nadler.
There are 2 questions, and they're implicated in all this. One, is it okay to solicit foreign interference for your election campaign? Is it okay to use the power of the presidency to coerce a foreign government into helping you in the election and to subvert the honesty of the election? And secondly, is it okay to order everyone not to testify in order to cover it up.
Intelligence Chairman Adam Schiff.
I would hope that every senator of both parties would like to see the documentary evidence. They'd like to hear from these witnesses that haven't testified. And I would urge Mitch McConnell to start negotiating with Chuck Schumer to make sure that those senators have a full record.
Majority Leader McConnell has said he's coordinating with the White House ahead of the trial. Democrats say that would fly in the face of senators' impeachment oath to act as impartial jurors to the Constitution and the laws. Republican Senator Ted Cruz was also on this week.
Senators are not required, like jurors in a criminal trial, to be sequestered, not to talk to anyone, not to coordinate. There's no prohibition. And by the way, past trials, you look at the Clinton impeachment trials, the Senate Democrats were all talking with the Clinton White House. You look at this impeachment trial, the House Democrats are all talking with the Senate Democrats. This remains a political process. The framers knew what they were doing when they put it into the political branches.
And fellow Republican Lindsey Graham tells CBS's Face the Nation he's ready to vote now.
I am clearly made up my mind. I'm not trying to hide the fact that I have disdain for the accusations in the process, so I don't need any witnesses. The president can make a request to call witnesses. They can make a request to call Mike Pence and Pompeo and Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. I am ready to vote on the underlying articles. I don't really need to hear a lot of witnesses.
But Democratic Senator Chris Coons says if the president is ultimately acquitted,
he will be unbounded, and I am gravely concerned about what else he might do between now and the 2020 election when there are no restrictions on his behavior.
Coons was on NBC's Meet the Press. Meantime, the FBI is promising to take corrective action after the Justice Department Inspector General's report found serious lapses in the process of obtaining a FISA warrant against Trump campaign aide Carter Page in 2016. James Comey was FBI director at the time. He tells Fox News Sunday,
I was overconfident in the procedures that the FBI and Justice had built over 20 years. I thought they were robust enough. It's incredibly hard to get a FISA. I was overconfident in those because he's right. There was real sloppiness. 17 things that either should have been in the applications or at least discussed and characterized differently. It was not acceptable.
White House advisor Pam Bondi was on the same program.
The men and the women of the FBI deserve much better than what they had, much better than what they had in James Comey. That man was fired in disgrace. He must have read a different report than we all read. He presided over the FBI in times worse than when J. Edgar Hoover was at the FBI. That man led the FBI.
And even with impeachment moving forward, the White House is touting the Phase 1 trade deal with China and the revamped trade agreement with Mexico and Canada. U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer was asked on Face the Nation when Phase 2 negotiations will begin with China.
We don't have a date. No, what we have to do is get this. We have to get the final translations worked out, the formalities. We're going to sign this agreement. But I'll tell you this, the second Phase 2 is going to be determined also by how we implement Phase 1. Phase 1 is going to be implemented right down to every detail. It really is a remarkable agreement, but it's not going to solve all the problems.
The Phase 1 trade deal consists of an 86-page agreement between the U.S. and China. The document won't be made public until next month, but Lighthizer shed some light on details around agricultural purchases.
What we have are specific breakdowns by products, and we have a commitment for $40 to $50 billion in sales. You could think of it as $80 to $100 billion in new sales for agriculture over the course of the next 2 years.
Lighthizer is also touting the ability to enforce this Phase 1 agreement, which had not been the case in early deals.
There's an enforcement provision that lasts it takes 90 days, and you get real enforcement. The United States can then take an action if China doesn't keep its commitments.
Put the tariffs back on.
Well, you would take a proportionate reaction like we do in every other trade agreement. So that's what we expect.
Meanwhile, Republican Senator Pat Toomey tells Meet the Press he still has problems with USMCA.
The purpose of renegotiating NAFTA was to diminish trade with Mexico so as to diminish the deficit. That's the wrong direction to go on trade.
And that is some of the conversation from the political shows heard every Sunday on Bloomberg Radio. NBC's Meet the Press at 11 a.m. Wall Street time, Fox News Sunday at noon, ABC's This Week at 1 p.m., and Face the Nation from CBS at 2 o'clock. Karen?
Well, Nathan, Senator Toomey isn't the only one with concerns about the trade agreement between the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. Mexico's top trade negotiator took to Twitter over the weekend to voice complaints about the USMCA. He objects to a congressional proposal creating multiple U.S. labor attachés to monitor implementation of the deal. The 18 tweets came after Mexico's top negotiator wrote to Robert Lighthizer to express surprise and concern about that part of the bill.
Now, turning focus back to Beijing, though, we're seeing more signs of progress on U.S.-China relations. Officials are in talks to have the American audit regulator review financial records of Chinese companies listed in the U.S. Here with details on that is Bloomberg Daybreak Asia anchor Doug Krisner.
We're told China's securities regulator and the U.S. audit watchdog stepped up talks this year on joint inspections of accounting firms overseen by both organizations. The U.S. has such agreements with more than 20 foreign regulators. However, negotiations with China have faltered in the past. Critics have argued over the risk to American investors given the inability of the U.S. to examine audits. Some hardliners in the White House urged President Trump to take a tough line on the issue during trade talks. Bloomberg data show Chinese companies listed on U.S. exchanges have a combined market capitalization of more than $1 trillion. In New York, I'm Doug Krisner, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Doug, thanks. So fears of an escalating trade war appear to be over for the time being. Now we wait for next month when the U.S. and China are set to sign their Phase 1 agreement. Still, though, there are some on the street that aren't joining in the collective sigh of relief. Jim McCafferty heads up Asia-Pacific equity research at Nomura.
We've been back and forward on supposed trade deals for 18 months now, and we've not had resolution yet. This appears to be a bit more robust. We've talked about 86 pages. It sounds substantive. But until something is signed with Trump's endorsement, we don't know what's going to happen. Now, we've talked about senior personnel within Trump's cabinet, within Xi's government, meeting up and getting something agreed. But I think actually it's going to take a kind of Trump tweet to actually get people acknowledging that something has happened. So trade deal, good for the economy, for the stock market? I don't think that relevant, really.
That played out in the market on Friday when the S&P 500 swung between gains and losses as neither side delivered enough details to calm investors.
All right, Nathan, thank you. And S&P futures are higher this morning, up about 12 points, while Dow futures are up 50 and NASDAQ futures are up 36. Bloomberg Surveillance is straight ahead with Tom Keene, Jonathan Farrell, and Lisa Abramowitz. For Nathan Hager, I'm Karen Moscow, and this is Bloomberg.
Christmas, a time for sharing gifts and laughter, and photos and videos. Make the most of it with a SIM-only deal packed with data from Tesco Mobile. Like a 10-gig SIM for just £13 a month. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile today. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 29th of December. 12-month contract and unlocked 4G-enabled phone required. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
You know it's out there somewhere, but you just keep missing out. I'm talking about your dream job. Now it's easier to find and land that perfect role with the LinkedIn app. Download it now and you'll have millions of opportunities in your pocket. LinkedIn has more openings than applicants. Build connections, keep in touch, and be the first to hear about new jobs. Don't miss out. Get your next big break and land your perfect job. Download the free LinkedIn app today.
I used to be a bit of a rubbish sleeper. I'd toss and turn all night, and somehow I could never find the comfy bit of the mattress. It was a proper nightmare. That's what brought me here, testing mattresses in the Which Test Lab. We use a custom-made barrel rolling machine to simulate a decade's worth of use. And the mattresses that perform best are the only ones we recommend for your bedroom.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
World, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
American economic power and future depends on trade deals.
In many of these countries, we've still seen people struggling.
Finance.
We're in this vortex of uncertainty. These big companies, they just sometimes lack focus.
Investment.
The markets have become a little bit too addicted to the Fed.
Timing the market is just so difficult.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrell on Bloomberg Radio.
Back in New York City for our audience worldwide.
right, good morning, good morning. This is Bloomberg Surveillance. Coming up on the program, risks receding, driving equity markets into uncharted territory. A trade truce and better economic data out of China fueling optimism as the Eurozone ends 2019 just as it started, struggling for momentum. From the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio, hello Monday. Here is your Monday morning price action. All-time highs at the close on Friday. We open things up Monday, potentially adding some weight to that with S&P 500 futures up 0.33%, call it 11 points. In the bond market, Treasury yields higher by 2 basis points to 184 on a 10-year. On a 2-year note, we get up to 163, up 2 basis points on the session so far. And in foreign exchange, another day of dollar weakness. The euro advances 0.2%, sterling stronger by 0.3%. Alongside Lisa Abramis, Tom Keene, I'm Jonathan Ferro. Tom Keene, good to be back in New York.
Good to be back in New York. And what's interesting here is the non-correlated nature of this. Equities of the big lift. Bonds really haven't correlated all that much. But I would note dollar and note, John, DXY. This is a blending of the major trading partner currencies. Breaching 97 is a big deal. I mean, it is a tangible weaker dollar.
Unlocking just a little bit of dollar weakness, Lisa. The data in China stabilizing just a little bit. Risk appetite picks up. Can this be a sustainable story going into 2020?
I'm watching oil because oil's telling another story. You're seeing a little bit of pressure there, trying to get above zero, but hard to say because right now this trade deal isn't necessarily firmed up in any way, shape, or form and is not giving people confidence. But for now, it's not just that. It's also the tone out of Chinese manufacturing data as well as some other bits as well.
So we're bringing Jens Nordvig. He's with us in the studio. Great to have him with us. Exante Data founder and CEO. Good morning to Jens.
Thank you.
Your thoughts on the trade story, the trade truce, the phase one agreement. What are you telling clients? What is it?
Well, we have a deal. I think even though the document has not been signed, I think it's going to be very, very difficult after the communication we've had from both sides not to get this deal done. So that's the direction we're heading, and it is a turning point. Like, we have some rollback of tariffs. It's not a dramatic thing to lower from 15 to 7.5 on a portion of the tariff stuff, but it is a step in the right direction, and I think it's important. So I think also, just if you think about the currency outlook, can China really allow their currency to depreciate from here? Like, we had that big psychological break of 7 a couple of months ago, and now we're trading literally at 7.00. I don't think we can have it trading weaker than 7 in a meaningful way in coming weeks. It's just not going to make the deal look good. So I think the downside is very capped for the Chinese currency. That's very important for EM currencies globally, and it's important for the dollar direction globally as well. So maybe that fits in this description of what's going on with the DXY as well.
Well, with trade, there has to be an opportunity to play it. How do you play a phase one trade deal? I mean, we want to clear uncertainty. We want to be more optimistic. But then how do you affect that in currency pairs?
Okay, so I'll answer in two ways. So the first way to answer is like we have some empirical models where you say, okay, what's the new equilibrium based on these tariff reliefs, and that gives you 6.96. So there's a little bit of appreciation in store there, and then there's the broader global dynamic, which is like an EM trending trade that can run much longer than that.
John, I like that you ask, is this sustainable? I'm struggling with that question, and I'm struggling with the idea that the dollar can continue to weaken because, yes, we have the fact that the December 15th tariffs aren't going to go into effect. But other than that, basically this phase one deal is let's figure it out as we go. We'll roll back tariffs perhaps as China complies with different phases. How does this improve confidence among CEOs in order to make investment, which is a key issue here, right?
So I think the CEO question is important, and that could impact the timing of when we get a lift to PMIs and so forth. But there's a couple of things going on at the same time, right? The Brexit situation, where we have a removal of tail risk, is also going to be helping to lift PMIs in Europe, not in this week's numbers, but probably in the next batch or two. So I do think in terms of global growth, we got to a very, very low level of growth expectations, actually weaker than in the downturn we had in 2015-16. So the bar we have to beat is extremely low, and I think there's a bunch of reasons now I think that the momentum is improving. And for the dollar, the most important variable is global growth. It's much more important than what the Fed is doing. So if we have that bottom, I feel very strongly that the dollar will trade weaker next year.
So this is really important, Jens. One thing you've done brilliantly over the last couple of years is emphasize how little rate differentials tell you about the direction of the dollar over the last couple of years. So talk to me about global growth and flows, investor flows into places like Europe, Asia, that can really unlock some dollar weakness in the coming 12 months.
Yes, I think one of the things that's really important over the last 5-6 weeks is that U.S. investors are starting to put more risk capital to work in international markets. So U.S. investors were incredibly cautious over the summer and actually repatriated investments from abroad back to the U.S., and that has changed. So this goes hand in hand with this bottoming of global growth expectations. There's a very strong correlation between what those expectations are and what those flows look like, and that is key to the dollar, right? And that's the one of the factors that can be separate from the rate differentials is if the equity flow goes more international.
So, Tom Keene, the key question is for your triple leveraged cash fund, is it going to be cash in dollars, or is it
dollar denominated or euro denominated?
Or euro or pound after your trip to Europe, after your trip to London? Yeah.
It's the high point of the European trip was the interview with the gentleman who runs Harrods over how to unload the wallet in Knightsbridge. Yes, that was the high point.
Did you pre-tape that one? I missed it.
No, yeah, you were in the Manolo Blahnik up on the top floor. Their little kiosk there. Jens, great. We're going to get a trade deal. We're going to go weak dollar. I still want to know how to express it. Do I do it through a bundled group of EM? Are there one or two? Are they true Pacific EM? Are they Eastern Europe? Are they N11? What are they?
Okay. Yeah, so I think initially you expressed this was EM, so dollar Mex is one, dollar Indonesia is one, dollar Taiwan is one. We talked about it on the TV segment that there are places where they cannot intervene like they've intervened in the past. Taiwan could be a really interesting regime shift on that front. Mm-hmm. So those are some of the ones I would look at.
Good. Jens Nordvik, thank you so much.
It's good to see you.
Today, too short a visit. Bloomberg Surveillance this morning, brought to you by Adipar. Adipar's portfolio reporting and insights platform is trusted by thousands of wealth advisors from family offices, RIAs, and large financial institutions. Learn more at adipar.com. Let me spell it for you. ADDEPAR. Adipar.com, and we thank them for joining us at Bloomberg Surveillance this morning. This is a huge deal to me. We're talking to Lord O'Neill, Jim O'Neill of Chatham House, and we were reminiscing about in the old days, currencies move 5, 6, 7 big figures, oftentimes 8, 10, 12 big figures. Today, 4 big figures. Yeah, home run. I mean, it's a really changed environment.
The dollar call is at the epicenter of 2020, isn't it? We've been waiting for it to materialize. It just hasn't. And I think Jens has done a brilliant job of telling us what we do need to see to unlock that dollar weakness. You need to see global growth stabilize. The data in China was better, undoubtedly. I would say we're not out of the woods yet in Europe.
Where's the I was going to say, where's the German math this morning?
It's not there.
And not just that, but did you see the story about how Germany is cracking down on Huawei now and threatening to potentially retaliate against Huawei? This is a huge story because there is a question, what can Germany do given the fact that the majority of their exports are to China right now?
Yeah, Patrick Donahue was on with us earlier, and he made clear there's a massive partition in Germany politically, just like in the United States, over this matter.
Did you see what the Chinese threatened to do?
Exactly.
A not so subtle threat to say, well, you sell lots of German vehicles in China.
Exactly. And this is, to me, a huge issue and raises a lot of concerns about trade tensions picking back up.
Let's jump ahead of 5 things you need to know since we're talking about China. They're really upset about this gentleman from Arsenal. I mean, English football player talked about the Western China issues.
This was Mesut Ozil. Right? This is a repeat of what happened with the NBA. Basically, he went on social media, he talked about the human rights violations, the allegations of human rights violations in China. And what happened over the weekend? Arsenal versus Manchester City did not air on Chinese TV. They took the game off the air. We've seen this with the NBA, Tom, and it happened again over the weekend. Yeah. You know, I would go as far as saying, even if we have a phase 1 trade truce, I would say that tensions between the West and China are worse, not better, over the last month alone.
That, I think, is a really important point, and I think it's important to recognize the phase 1 deal is just pushing out phase 1A, phase 1B, phase 1C. This is a rolling phase 1 deal.
A rolling 5, 6, 12-year transaction, which is usually, as Ted Alden at CFR says, that's what you get. Futures up 12. They advance. They're grinding higher. There's been a nice lift in the last 90 minutes. Futures up 12. Dow futures up 53. And the VIX is a really stunning statistic off of what we saw Thursday and Friday. 12.24, a lower statistic on the VIX in 0.39 points. Worldwide, this is Bloomberg.
And now for the news in New York City, here is Michael Barr.
John, Lisa, Tom, thank you very much. House leaders are preparing for the final impeachment vote just as lawmakers are about to leave for the holiday break. Meanwhile, Senate leaders are considering how to structure a trial for President Donald Trump. In a letter to Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Minority Leader Chuck Schumer proposed calling for 4 witnesses during the trial that could last 3 weeks or longer. President Trump denies any wrongdoing. At least 6 senior aides have resigned from the staff of Democratic Representative Jeff Van Drew of New Jersey. Van Drew plans to switch parties to the GOP. Van Drew represents the 2nd District in the state. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, John.
Michael Barr, thank you, sir. Global equities, uncharted territory. The stock 600 all-time highs. The S&P 500 at a record coming into a brand new trading week. Equity futures up 12 on the S&P with positive 0.4%. This is Bloomberg.
Elite advisory firms rely on BNY Mellon's Pershing to meet the needs of their most complex clients. Karen Novak, Chief Operating Officer at Pershing Advisor Solutions, explains how.
At BNY Mellon's Pershing, we bring customized insights and strategies to help you grow your advisory business and stay on the leading edge. We can support the needs of your most sophisticated clients with a full range of investment and wealth management solutions, from access to private banking to consolidated bank and brokerage custody. Learn why so many of the largest advisory firms turn to us for the financial strength and high-touch service that BNY Mellon's Pershing can provide. Are you well positioned to stand out from your competition?
Learn more at Pershing.com or call 800-445-4467. Brokerage custody provided by Pershing LLC and other services provided by Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC. Both members of FINRA and SIPC. Private banking and bank custody provided by BNY Mellon NA. Member FDIC.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Ah, Christmas. A time for celebrating, unwrapping, and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6S with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
For the independent bookseller who found you that first edition. For the baker who brings the smell of freshly baked bread to your door.
And for the barista who never needs to ask your name.
We've all got a part to play.
Every little tap keeps your high street alive.
And helps your communities thrive.
So if you love where you live, shop small.
Shopping on your local high street can make a big difference. Shop small. Only by American Express.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Christmas. A time for celebrating, unwrapping and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6S with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
From Bloomberg Television. Here's Paul Allen.
Australia's mid-year budget update shows economic reality is starting to bear down on government finances. Ministers lowered the forecast budget surplus for the 12 months through next June and the following 3 fiscal years on reduced expectations of tax revenue over that period. So let's discuss all of this with Finance Minister Matthias Cormann. Is the reality of a slowing economy starting to hit the budget bottom line now?
Well, the Australian economy continues to grow, but we are not immune from what is happening in the global economy, and after successive global economic growth downgrades, of course that impacts on our economy and it is impacting on our revenue base. Even though we had to write down $30 billion plus in tax revenue, we remain on track to deliver a surplus this year and each year over the forward estimates and indeed over the medium term, with those surpluses growing to more than 1% as a share of GDP.
We've also seen wage growth forecasts lowered as well for the coming years. Is it time to perhaps consider bringing forward some of that tax relief that's in the budget?
Real wages growth remains stronger than when we came into government. Wages continue to grow above inflation, and indeed the growth in disposable income in the last quarter was the highest in more than a decade.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. It is 7:17 on Wall Street, and Bloomberg Daybreak is out on customer terminals, bringing you all the news you need to start your day. Let's get a check of the latest headlines with Chris Kirkham at the Bloomberg Daybreak desk. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Karen. The USMCA deal is coming under fire from Mexico's top negotiator. In a series of Twitter posts, he objects to a plan to create multiple US labor attaches to monitor the deal. International Flavors and Fragrances will buy DuPont's nutrition unit for $26 billion. It's the biggest deal ever for IFF, which beat out Kerry Group for the unit. Boeing may decide to suspend production of the 737 MAX today. That's according to sources who say a temporary production pause is under consideration as uncertainty grows over the plane's return to service. And shares of PG&E are falling after California rejected the company's overhaul plan. Governor Gavin Newsom says the debt-heavy proposal would prevent PG&E from making necessary safety investments. For all the news you need to start your day, check out Daybreak on your mobile phone on the Bloomberg Anywhere app. Karen?
All right, Chris, thank you. Yes, PG&E currently down 24.5% in early trading. Boeing is down 3.5%. S&P futures higher up 12 points. Dow futures up 49. NASDAQ futures up 40. The DAX in Germany's up 0.7%. FTSE 100 up 2.2%. 10-year Treasury down 6/32, yield 1.84%. Yield on the 2-year 1.62%. NYMEX crude oil little change at $60.04 a barrel. COMEX gold little changed at $14.8070 an ounce. And the euro at 1.1144 against the dollar. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom, John, and Lisa.
Yeah, thanks so much, John. I really noticed Lawrence the Cat over at 10 Downing Street. He's got the new water dish. Did you see that out front?
Lawrence the Cat.
Lawrence the Cat. Carlisle United. I mean, he's going all north. Made a big shift.
Is that his new dish?
Yeah, got rid of the Arsenal one.
He's changed his constituency.
He's got the water dish from Carlisle.
You had a lot of fun last week, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I mean, the most interesting thing, folks, particularly for those of you coast to coast, was talking to the cab drivers. about Arsenal and about Brexit.
About football and about Brexit.
Politics as
See what
well.
I missed last week, Lisa?
Fired up.
Well, I honestly was waiting for the video that you posted. You would post on Twitter.
There is a video.
Yourself.
There is proof.
Yeah, there is proof.
I've got it on my phone.
Yeah?
I'm not sure whether I'm going to distribute it just yet because Mrs. Keane sent it over to me. I'm going to have a think about it. Let's see how the next couple of segments go.
Okay,
and if Tom behaves, I'll keep hold of it. And if he doesn't, I'll release it to the general public. A big win for the Conservative Party last week, then a landslide for the Prime Minister Boris Johnson. 365 seats to Labour Party's 203. One of the worst showings for the Labour Party in the last century. Conservative Party, the biggest majority for them going back to the Thatcher days in the late 1980s. Both of these leaders were deeply unpopular. The post-mortem in the UK continues. Why could Labour, why didn't they connect with the constituencies that belonged to them for much of the last century? And why did they isolate voters elsewhere? Joining us now, I'm pleased to say, is Nera Church from outside number 10 Downing Street. We're looking out for a couple of things in the following week, trying to get our head around the kind of Brexit the Prime Minister is going to negotiate in the next year or so, what the Cabinet looks like, and who will be the Bank of England Governor in the coming months as well. Nera, walk us through all of those things we've got to look out for in the coming days, weeks and months.
Well, John, Tom, Lisa, Larry the cat is actually just walking away now, having been crouched under the Christmas tree for a while, eyeing up a pigeon. Other than that, it's pretty quiet down here today. But what we are looking out for, as you say, are a few things. Today, Cabinet appointments of Welsh Secretary, Culture Secretary and Environment Minister. We might also hear from Boris Johnson and get more of an idea of what kind of Brexit he wants. We know that getting Brexit done still remains the top government priority. He's expected to bring a law to affect that actually before Christmas, so in effect this week, in order to exit the EU by January 31st. And then on Thursday, we're looking ahead to the Queen's speech, which will outline some of the government's plans, including an extra £34 billion or $45 billion of spending on the National Health Service every year through 2024. Of course, this was a big election battleground, the NHS, during the campaign. And then, as you say, going into 2020, January 31st is supposed to be Mark Carney's last day in the job. We look ahead to see what this could mean for the BOE successor, the successor to him at the BOE and who that might be. And we look ahead, of course, to the trade negotiations with the EU. And if we look at Labour too, you were talking about that just before you came to me. Questions over as well. Who is going to succeed Jeremy Corbyn as leader of the Labour Party?
Nera, right now we're seeing the pound at the highest level since June, continuing its gains, and yet we got this data out about UK manufacturing production suffering its worst month in more than 7 years in December. There is a question, especially as it's likely that we're going to see a contraction in the economy. How much is that going to pressure the momentum that we're seeing post-election?
Yeah, it's a great question, Lisa. I mean, for one thing, from the Bank of England's perspective, it's interesting because since we got the UK election results, remember that at the last meeting, there were two dissenters who voted for a rate cut. And also the market was pricing in at least one rate cut for 2020. Well, actually, that market pricing around a rate cut has pulled back a little bit since we got the election result. And some people I've spoken to have said the market might even start to price in hikes now. But the data that you point to, of course, does add a complication to that. We do have a lot of data coming out this week. That was the PMI. We also have employment data, wage data coming out. There's a number of things that, of course, are going to feed into any kind of Bank of England decision. In terms of pressure on Boris Johnson, well, one way to look at this, I suppose, is what the government is going to do in terms of spending to boost the economy. So this is a country that's been used since 2010 to austerity, spending cuts, tax increases, something like £100 billion worth of that. And now we hear that there's going to be an end to an austerity, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be a spending boom, Tom.
Nera, thank you so much. Nera Chayich with us, too short a visit from 10 Downing Street with Lawrence the Cat. And so, John, I'm just wondering, when does fiscal stimulus show itself? When do they prove the end of austerity rather than just talk about it?
And that's why, Tom, I think for the Bank of England, which meets this week, they're going to have to wait before they move. Because if we get the fiscal stimulus in spring of next year, then maybe it moves the dial for what they do next.
And there's Kevin Warsh in the mix.
Yeah, I've heard that.
As I made clear, he was hugely underestimated when he became Fed governor. He was a guy from Wall Street, and and he left with resounding acclaim.
Seen this report in the FT alongside Manoush Shafiq as well. Used to serve at the Bank of England, now at the London School of Economics. So a couple of names doing the rounds, Tom. Might find out who's going to replace Governor Mark Carney at the end of January 2020. Perhaps we'll find out in the coming weeks. From New York, for our audience worldwide, this is Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Looks like a higher open on Wall Street to kick off the new week with Dow futures up 54 points. The U.S. and China reached that partial trade deal, and that averted some new tariffs that were slated to kick in yesterday. It will also see Washington reducing other tariffs and Beijing boosting purchases of American farm goods, although many details are still to be ironed out. Here in the U.S. today, we get a look at New York Fed region manufacturing activity and home builder sentiment, and reports on U.S. manufacturing and services. Kind of a busy week for earnings. We hear from FedEx, Paychex, General Mills, Darden Restaurants, ConAgra, Nike, and others. And a lot of Fed speakers will get attention this week. Stocks ended little changed on Friday, but the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ will start out the session today at new record highs. S&P futures up 12, NASDAQ futures up 35 points. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients, and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Dear Dad, Merry Christmas. Thank you for always doing everything you could to make this time of year special for us. No one has a Christmas jumper collection quite like yours. Your festive spirit...
Gingerbread latte with 2 shots and nutmeg whipped cream for Joe.
I hope it snows. I know how you love a white Christmas. All my love, Joe. Heartfelt can happen anywhere with moonpig.com. Download the app and get 20% off when you buy a card and gift this Christmas. Use code Heartfelt20. Exclusions apply.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen now to ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
Tonight, TuneIn has your Monday night NFL football with the Indianapolis Colts at the New Orleans Saints. Kickoff at 8:15 p.m. Eastern.
1st and 10 from the 18. Breeze in the gun. Niners bring pressure again. Breeze throws over the middle. That ball's caught. Traquan Smith into touch. Smith double tackle into the end zone. Traquan Smith!
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Spend Christmas Day listening to the NBA on TuneIn Premium. Featuring 5 big matchups on the holiday schedule. Unwrap the action starting at 12 Eastern when the Celtics take on the Raptors in Toronto, followed by the Bucks and the 76ers at 2:30. The holiday cheers continue with the Rockets and Warriors at 5 and the Clippers and Lakers at 8. And a showdown between the Pelicans and Nuggets at 10:30. 'Tis the season with the NBA on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie.
With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds, or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
From New York City, this is Bloomberg Surveillance for our audience worldwide. We're live on Bloomberg Radio, 2 hours away from the opening bell. The news you need to know this hour. U.S. equity futures pointing to more records, while stocks in Europe at an all-time high on U.S.-China trade optimism. Elsewhere in China, industrial output and retail sales both beating expectations, while in the U.K., factories posted the weakest performance in more than 7 years. Up next, a reading on U.S. manufacturing coming through at 9:45 a.m. Wall Street time. In deal news, International Flavors and Fragrances has agreed to pay $26 billion for DuPont's nutrition division. Elsewhere, Boeing shares down more than 3%. Sources say the plane maker is considering a temporary halt to production of its 737 MAX as regulatory clearance for the jet looks likely to slip beyond January. Some of the stories we'll be talking about through the next couple of hours then right here on Bloomberg Radio. Time now for some headlines from elsewhere. Let's say good morning to Michael Barr. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, John. Good morning, Tom. Good morning, Lisa. Democrats are proposing a Senate impeachment trial seeking testimony from 4 new witnesses, including John Bolton and Mick Mulvaney, over President Trump's actions toward Ukraine. Senate Democrats released a detailed outline of their trial proposal yesterday. The outline is an attempt to launch negotiations ahead of the House voting this week that is all but certain to result in the president being impeached. U.S. Special Envoy Stephen Biegun says that it's not too late to make real progress on nuclear talks with North Korea. Biegun in Seoul has called on Pyongyang to come to talks with the U.S. congregation while they are in South Korea after increased tensions in the region.
It is regrettable that the tone of these statements towards the United States, the Republic of Korea, Japan, and our friends in Europe have been so hostile and negative and so unnecessary.
Bigun's comments come after North Korea threatened to give Trump a Christmas gift to show its frustration with the U.S. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg John.
Michael Barr, thank you, sir. It's time now for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Report. Here is John Stashower.
Jonathan, there are Giants fans who just as soon have their team lose at this point of the season, get a higher draft pick, but the players and coaches certainly don't want to lose. Pat Shermer might be fighting to keep his job, and Eli Manning has suffered through so much losing the last few years that his career record had dropped under 500. At MetLife, Giants pulled away, beat Miami 36-20 for Eli. 3 interceptions, but also a pair of touchdown passes and a huge ovation when he was taken out.
Obviously, the support and the fans and their ovation and their chanting my name from the first snap to the end. I appreciate that and appreciate them always, and just all my teammates coming up to me. So special day, special win. And, one I'll remember.
Giants end a club record-tying 9-game losing streak. Buffalo last night clinched a playoff berth, winning at Pittsburgh 17-10. The Knicks' 2-game win streak came to an end in Denver, 111-105. But Knicks are playing better. They lost to the Nuggets recently in New York by 37. Nets beat Philadelphia 109-89. Madison Bumgarner leaving the Giants after 11 years. He'll now pitch for Arizona. With the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashower. Jonathan?
John Stashower, thank you, sir. John there with the sports. You've had the news. Here's your price action this Monday morning. Equities coming into the week at record highs, and we are set to add some weight to that. S&P 500 futures up by 0.4%. Interesting over the last week to see a bond market that really hasn't done a whole lot. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the program. Yields up by just 2 basis points on a 10-year to 1.843%. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From our world headquarters in New York, good morning, everyone. Good morning, coast to coast and worldwide. Bloomberg Surveillance. It's get right to it. The Bloomberg NJIT STEM report, brought to you by New Jersey Institute of Technology, designated an innovation and economic prosperity university for its economic engagement. More at njit.edu. Here's Bob Boone.
Tom, Jonathan, good morning. Here's what's making news in science, technology, engineering, and math. U.S. antitrust enforcers are considering going to court to stop Facebook's plan to merge technology systems so that users can communicate across the company's apps. According to a person familiar with the matter, the Federal Trade Commission is studying whether to seek a court order to block the company's effort to enable messaging among users of WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook Messenger. Facebook's integration plan has come under criticism from those who say the move would make it harder to break up Facebook as part of any antitrust case against the company. Back when Kodak was building its photography business, the company coined the slogan, "You press the button, we do the rest." Today, smartphones do the rest when it comes to taking great pictures, which explains why the camera on your phone has become a very big deal for manufacturers. Photography has become a key differentiator. Read that selling point in the marketplace. Apple, for example, has rapidly added new camera features to its iPhone and plans to add a 3D camera next year for improved depth sensing and augmented reality. Now it develops, that Apple has acquired a UK-based startup with technology that improves photos taken on smartphones, Spectral Edge Limited. The company uses a type of AI called machine learning to make smartphone pictures crisper with more accurate colors. Its technology takes an infrared shot and blends it with a standard photo to improve the image. And that's the Bloomberg NJIT STEM report. Tom, Jonathan.
Bob Boone, thanks so much. 5 things you need to know to start your day. Brought to you by Interactive Brokers. Their margin loans start at 3.06% and decrease for larger loan values. Rates subject to change. Learn more at ibkr.com/compare. John, up we go. Futures up 13. Dow futures up 40. The VIX is nirvanic. Guess what? Country after country manufacturing isn't there.
Show me the data. We were looking for a recovery at the halfway point of 2019. Then it was the back end of 2019, and now it's Q1 2020 in Europe. The industrial downturn showing no real signs of picking up anytime soon. The good news going into the new year, no real sign, no big sign that it's bleeding into services and really hitting the economy in a major way.
And Jens Nordvig saying, China, maybe a bottom.
China just a little bit better, just a little bit of stabilization.
There is a question, though, how much is this a flood of stimulus from the central bank over in China, right? And then the question is, how much are they willing to continue to do this, weakening their financial system? And how long will it take before the bleed-through happens?
In the news today, and for those catching up on the Sunday into Monday zeitgeist, one gentleman, John, on an airplane from Mexico City to Washington, and he is furious. There's no words minced at all.
The tweet storm from Mexico's top trade negotiator. Unhappy that we had an inclusion of the oversight of some labor attaches from the United States down to Mexico. Yeah, we've got to work this out. Bit of tension over USMCA.
Yeah, there it is. Let's go through the markets. The rationalization of the 2019 up 26% SPX. I mean, we're into the holiday week. It starts today. I get that. Wow. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen this much rationalization of double-digit return.
Lisa nailed it. Central bank stimulus, multiple expansion. That's the story through 2019.
Because ultimately it's a relative value trade, and if you're getting no yield on the benchmark government bond yields, then you might as well go to stocks, at least for the dividend, and becomes a relative value trade that makes sense until it doesn't.
A lot of people to talk about here. Jeff Yu at UBS talking about all that cash that's out there, and they've really said, okay, where does the cash go? And to that point of it, you wonder, what a highlight. Steve Major with HSBC in London.
Great to see Steve.
This week. And the way longer is hugely important.
Look, I think last week, the most important development of last week was probably that news conference with Chairman Powell. And not that news conference alone, but it just signaled the complete pivot from the Fed in the last 12 months, the complete 180 from the central bank. Not just how their interpretation of the data has changed, there's more slack out there, but also emphasizing how they'll respond to the incoming data in the next 12 months. They need a sustained pickup in inflation before they even think about hiking rates. This is a central bank on hold for a long time.
Bonus round, LSOSL code within surveillance for the fact that Lisa sat on Santa's lap. What happened? You went
really?
out this weekend with the cherubs?
I'm taking a little walk out of the studio.
Honestly, wait, please, John Farrow.
On your right.
John Farrow.
On your right.
Do you have that video of Tom Keene? Please, this is it. He just got it. No, you are tweeting that out. He just absolutely crossed the threshold, and now we are all going to see
is
the video.
Is the Santa thing still working? Because I see it gone. Seriously.
This is the business of Santa. This is your comeback after that.
No, I see Santa like gone, and it's like cool that he was still out there.
Well, yeah, he made. I don't even know where to go. I mentioned for people who are listening, I happened to mention that I went to a party where Santa did arrive, and my 10-year-old skeptic was asking if it was a freelance gig.
You kept it going with a 10-year-old.
Your kid asked Santa if it's a freelance gig.
I'm sorry. You
better have kept it going with a 10-year-old. This is a sore topic. You keep it going. I got to go on to football here.
Please.
John, kick the ball farther out. Manchester City. I'm sorry. It's like hockey. It's like American sports. Get the ball, kick it, and good things happen.
I haven't seen the goals. Were they good?
They're like from farther out. There's none of this fancy stuff. It's like get the ball, kick it.
You
if
love
you miss,
that,
so
don't
what?
You? I have told NBC Sports to sign you up for the weekend. I think you'd be a great commentator.
Get the ball and kick it.
Can anybody
sign
capture
TK
Liverpool?
up for Premier League football? I think it's going to be tough, Tom. Seriously, it's going to be tough.
Okay.
A lot of games coming in the coming weeks.
Very good. This is Bloomberg Futures up 13. Good morning, Santa.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong.
Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Spend Christmas Day listening to the NBA on TuneIn Premium. Featuring 5 big matchups on the holiday schedule. Unwrap the action starting at 12 Eastern when the Celtics take on the Raptors in Toronto, followed by the Bucks and the 76ers at 2:30. The holiday cheers continue with the Rockets and Warriors at 5 and the Clippers and Lakers at 8. And a showdown between the Pelicans and Nuggets at 10:30. 'Tis the season with the NBA on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Want TuneIn to remind you when the big NFL game is about to get underway? Be sure notifications are allowed on your phone and search NFL on the TuneIn app. Find the game you want to hear under events and tap Notify Me. We'll let you know exactly when it's time to listen in for kickoff.
Whether you call yourself a Democrat, Republican, Independent, or something else, the road to 2020 is on TuneIn.
What a night! And a complete earthquake. This was
Follow every step of the Democratic primaries while hearing the latest headlines from the White House with live 24-hour news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox News Talk, and more.
We're closing in on the first results in the battle for the White House.
Experience the election through the sources you trust with the nonstop news channels on TuneIn.
Start hearing more of what you want.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Cutting for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marchand scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
4 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
House Democratic leaders are preparing for the final impeachment vote just as lawmakers are about to leave for the holiday break. A vote could come as soon as Wednesday, leading to a January trial in the Senate. Between 30 and 60 people had to be decontaminated in Houston after trace amounts of mercury were discovered at several spills around the city. Houston Fire Chief Sam Pena says all is under control now. Under fire from conservative activists, the Hallmark Channel first pulled ads featuring two brides kissing at a wedding ceremony, and after backlash from gay rights groups, reversed course, reinstalling the ads late yesterday. Head of the gay rights organization GLAAD, Sarah Kate Ellis.
We're working with Hallmark. We're talking to them. We've been talking to them all weekend because they want to do the right thing. And I think that the quick reversal is the right thing. And now we have to watch to make sure and see what they do in the future.
UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson says laws needed to enact Britain's exit from the European Union will go before Parliament on Friday. I'm Michael Toscano.
Here is some great news. If you missed the deadline to sign up for help.
Deep understanding in record time.
$2 billion, not exactly what they were going for.
They're going to be profitable.
Bloomberg Business Week, weekday afternoons at 2 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. This update brought to you by IBKR and CME Group. The new micro E-mini futures contracts are available at IBKR at the lowest commissions. Learn more at IBKR.com/CME Mini. U.S. stock index futures and European shares are higher amid hopes a partial trade deal between the U.S. and China eases a key risk for investors heading into year end. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures are up 13 points. Dow futures up 46. NASDAQ futures up 41. The DAX in Germany is up 0.7%. The CAC in Paris up 1%. FTSE 100 up 2.2%. 10-year Treasury down 6/32, yield 1.84%. Yield on the 2-year 1.62%. NYMEX crude oil is little changed at $60.05 a barrel. COMEX gold little changed at $14.8140 an ounce. The euro 1.1145 against the dollar. British pound 1.3378 and the yen at 109.44. PG&E is down more than 25%. Falling after California rejected the company's overhaul plan. Governor Gavin Newsom said the debt-heavy proposal would prevent PG&E from making necessary safety investments. And sources tell Bloomberg Boeing is considering temporarily halting production of the 737 MAX as regulatory clearance for the grounded jet's return looks increasingly likely to slip beyond January 2020. And Boeing shares also moving lower this morning, down more than 4%. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom, John, and Lisa.
Karen, thanks so much. I'll do a little vamp here on the United States of America before John Farrow dives in with Lisa on water strategy. We can do that with David Kelly, who's with J.P. Morgan. He's had a global strategy for this, that, and the other part of the great beast, and he joins us this morning. You did a wonderful degree in Ireland, and then you enjoyed Lansing, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
If you go directly west from Lansing, Michigan, there's Kenosha, Wisconsin. There's a company there called Snap-on Tools, which is as basic as you can get. 16% total return, 16% dividend growth, trading at next to nothing compared to this market. Do I buy more Snap-on Tool, Kenosha, Wisconsin, or do I end up buying some fancy pants tech thing out on the West Coast? Which?
I didn't think that was a question you were going to ask me this morning, but
that's the arch question after 26% this year.
I think there are large distortions within the US, within the U.S. market, but we've got to remember that so long as you're in a momentum up stage, I think there's more and more money going into ETFs, into passive strategies, which is actually helping momentum stocks. So I wouldn't want to make a short-term call on that. I think the bigger point for investors is international is cheap relative to the U.S.
Okay.
And I think you need to make your money these big asset allocation calls.
I wanted to get that out of the way, John, other than to say that the Spartans of Michigan State have a hockey team this year to die for.
I feel like that's the only reason you brought up
that
particular question.
Spartan hockey.
If you're not familiar with some of the notes that David Kelly puts out, please reach out to him because there's some great lines in there. There's an old saying that the reason some people bash their heads against the wall is because it feels so good when they stop.
Yeah.
What are you referring to, David?
I'm referring to all this progress on trade. I mean, if you go back 4 years ago, we didn't have Brexit. We had an old NAFTA, and we didn't have trade war with China. And now we've got a USMCA which looks like it's going to pass to deal with to sort of as a NAFTA 1.0001. We've got. I think Brexit will finally be resolved in a more comfortable way than people fear, we'll have a phase one deal with China to move back a few steps on the road we were on. But in the end, all it's doing is reducing the amount of mutilation we were doing to ourselves. It's not really progress in the long scheme of things.
Let's continue with this metaphor of banging your head against a wall and then stopping and being really happy that you stopped. The question is, we're now getting back to, can the real global economy generate the kind of growth that is baked into the valuations in equities and risk assets in 2020? And right now, the consensus seems to be yes, given the certainty that we're getting from the trade truce. But do you disagree based on this idea that we're not moving forward necessarily? We're just not banging our head against the wall anymore?
I think you have to have a different story somewhat on the economy and on markets. It is true that in absolute terms, valuations are expensive. But if you look at it relative to cash, relative to bonds around the world, valuations are cheap. And so long as you buy the idea that the global economy is going to grow slowly but not generate inflation, you're going to have these low rates, you're going to have central banks falling over themselves to be easy, and that still means that there's nowhere else for the money to go. So money is getting funneled into global equities.
So let's put some capital to work then. The regional breakdown going into 2020. Europe, Asia, EM. How are you thinking about that breakdown at the moment, David?
I would be EM first, probably EM Asia first, probably, and then Europe, Japan, second and third. I think one of the key things is rising trade tensions hurt the rest of the world more than they hurt the US. And that they also contribute to a higher dollar. Falling trade tensions therefore give you a lower dollar and also benefit the big traders of the world, which are EM countries. So that's where I think you'll see the bounce, both in terms of lower dollar and better performance from EM stocks. So that's kind of where I'd want to be overweight.
David, I'm struggling right now because I'm thinking about what you're saying, this idea of low inflation, central banks stimulating, risk assets look relatively cheap. That's been the story for 10 years. At what point does that run out? At what point does this create a real problem?
Well, it creates a problem if inflation comes back. But there's a funny thing going on in the global economy, and that is that income is getting less and less equally distributed. And aggregate demand is when people with money want to buy stuff. And the problem in the global economy right now is the people who have money don't want to buy stuff, and the people who want to buy stuff don't have money. And so long as that income inequality grows, you don't have enough aggregate demand in the economy. That's what's holding inflation low. So the irony is if we ever do fix the problem for middle income consumers, for lower income consumers, then we'll have inflation, and then that's
how
when
do you do that? The new Foreign Affairs magazine is absolutely exquisite. It's the strongest issue they've ever done, including the Nobel laureates Jerry C. Muller's in there on capitalism. How do you affect a policy to lift the have-nots without diminishing the haves?
Well, I mean, it's productivity, you try and reduce some of the non-productive things you do. I mean, we've got a lot of negative sum games going on in the world in things like defense, in terms of trade. Yeah, all of these things. So you try and get rid of the things that are hurting you. You introduce more certainty. I think you also try to reduce currency volatility. I mean, we should get back to a situation where the United States, Europe, China are actually talking about exchange rates and trying to make them less volatile. Because right now everybody's keeping rates low, unreasonably low, to try and push their currency down. And that is, I think, in the end, just distorting for the global economy.
Can we do a 10-year bet? And that's what it is. It's going to be a bit of a gamble. Let's do a 10-year bet. Where are rates going to be at the ECB in 10 years' time? Higher or lower?
I think, they could hardly be lower, so they will be higher. The question is, are they a little bit higher or much higher? And that really gets back to the first question I'm asking, because eventually, think about this growth in financial assets. What is a financial asset? A financial asset is a coupon which says that you can buy some part of the goods and services produced by the real economy. Now, what we've seen is an explosion in the value of financial assets, while the global economy is kind of like a tortoise. Eventually, when people cash in those assets, you've got an inflation problem. We don't have it right now, but if you're going to ask me, could we have that within the next 10 years in Europe or indeed in the United States? Yes, we could.
Well, let's have the same question for the Federal Reserve then. 175, higher or lower at the Fed in the next 10 years?
I think, again, by the end of 10 years, I think we'll be higher than that, because it's crazy. It's less than the rate of inflation. I mean, the whole concept of saving is that I don't eat 10 apples today because you will give me 11 apples in the future. What we're telling people today is, don't consume 10 apples today because we'll give you 9 apples in the future. That is nuts, and it is not sustainable in the long run.
Just to put it out there, the reason I asked this is Bank of America have come out with a fantastic piece about the last 10 years, what performed well, what didn't perform well, which was the most activist central bank, which was the least activist central bank. The least activist central bank worldwide over the last 10 years, Japan, 1 rate cut, no hikes. And the same is probably true for the 10 years previous to that as well, that once we get down to these kind of levels, we're stuck here.
Yes.
Why is that going to be different for Europe, different for the United States over the next decade?
Well, because, as I said, it is fostering a boom in financial assets. And eventually, if those financial assets end up in the hands of people who actually want to spend the money rather than save the money, then you have a growth in inflation. And the key thing here is inflation. I mean, I know the Japanese have been looking for inflation, but if they ever distributed income, and it's somewhat more egalitarian in Japan, but if you get more consumer spending going,
right,
and among lower middle income consumers, then you could end up with inflation, and that's what changes this whole story.
You and I know each other long ago and far away in Boston when a CD was 9% or 7%. It ain't there anymore.
Yes.
Is there any evidence a central bank can quote unquote reflate?
Well, they can push up short-term rates if they want to. The problem is they lose their nerve. I mean, did the Federal Reserve really need to ease 3 times this year? No, but they did it. So can they do it? Yes, they can push up short-term rates, and in the end, I think they should, because I think we should get back to more normal monetary policy, and that will, in the end, reduce distortions around the global economy. But they could do it. I'm not saying they're going to.
Next time, David Kelly on where the Irish border is. I don't know where it is after the election. Maybe we'll talk to him about that.
I think it's now in the Irish Sea.
I think it's in the Irish Sea. David Kelly, thank you so much as always with JP Morgan. Just thrilled to have him here. As you say, John, really important. His notes are exquisite
and fantastic. Really easy to read.
JP Morgan,
super engaging. Love them.
I honestly think the point that he raises about the people who have money they're not spending it. The people who don't are. That's what you're seeing in consumer debt levels that are increasing, and credit card, auto loans. I find it really interesting and important to watch. Right now, we've got a positive tone to futures. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Christmas, a time for celebrating, unwrapping, and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6S with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Ho, ho, ho. Who's made a list this year?
I want a new phone. One with amazing cameras, ultra-wide lens, of course, live focus video. Well, it has to be 5G ready to stream all my films. Can it come with something awesome to listen to them through?
Darling, I think he was talking to the kids.
Get everything you want and more. Purchase a Samsung 5G ready device and claim a pair of silver wireless Galaxy Buds at no extra cost. Shop our 5G handsets in store or online at your local O2 store or o2.co.uk. 18 plus. Offer excludes Galaxy Fold 5G. Purchased by the 25th of the 12/19. Claim from Samsung within 30 days. T's and C's apply.
Cutting for the net. Scores! On the goal line. Marchand scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today. Financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
I think the U.S. is going in for a couple of years of very, very strong growth.
The deficit by early in the next decade will start to become a real problem for the markets.
Finance.
The consumer is really strong right now.
We don't realize how good times are now.
Investment.
The biggest problem that people have in investing in stocks is that they get out of the market.
It's not supposed to be easy. Anyone who finds it easy is stupid.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Bloomberg Surveillance from our world headquarters in New York. John and I back after a hugely successful week in London. We thank Team Surveillance for great conversation, global conversation, including that historic election in London. The Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studios. We say good morning to all of you. And not only, John and Lisa, a lift, but the character of this morning's lift, it grindeth higher persistently.
Treasury market, though, stands out for me. And
Yes,
Lisa, I know you want to weigh in on
Totally
this.
agree.
Yields are up by just a couple of basis points, 184. In fact, 10-year yields are almost exactly where they were
Agreed,
2 Fridays
totally.
ago after payrolls.
Yeah, this was really interesting because a lot of people were predicting 10-year yields would go up to 2% if there was some sort of trade deal. That seems to be off the table. And the question is, why? Is it just the nature of the trade deal, or is it there's not going to be any inflation anytime soon regardless?
And I'd note that the correlation on currency may be a little better with a weaker dollar this morning. Yen 109.42, euro 111.45. Bloomberg Surveillance this morning brought to you by Cohn Resnick. Transform your tax game. The Cohn Resnick team can help dealmakers develop a winning tax strategy. Visit CohnResnick.com/tax insight. We thank Cohn Resnick for their support as well. What we need now, not a clinic on the equity markets. We've done that a little bit this morning. But, John, I think we've really got to dive into full faith and credit.
We do, and we can do that with Priya Misra, Global Head of Rate Strategy at TD Securities. Priya, great to have you with us on the program. Tom's got a few questions on repo, but let's start this conversation where we picked up at the top of the hour. 10-year rate, 184, no big shift higher. Why?
So thanks for having me. Always good to chat with you all. What we heard on Friday in terms of the deal, it's phase one. It's agricultural purchases. I mean, does it remove entire business uncertainty around tariffs for all of next year and beyond? I would argue not. I think just 2 weeks ago we heard from the president that we were going to impose tariffs on Brazil and Argentina. You know, the French tariffs are out there. Our view is that's all we're going to get for U.S.-China is going to be phase one. I mean, it took them like 3 months after we had the deal in principle to actually get this somewhat written down. So to try and get phase two, phase three, which are all much more difficult structural issues, our thought is we're not actually going to get this until the election. So the global growth dynamic, I think, it did take away, I think, some of the negative or the worst case scenario has been removed. I think the escalation of tariffs, which we were all nervous, could that happen on Sunday, that's been taken off. And therefore, I think equities liked it. But for rates to sell off much more from here, I think we need clear evidence that business uncertainty is going away, that business investment is going to pick up, and the consumer remains resilient. I think all of those questions are still there. So I would argue we're near the high end of the rate range.
Priya, if that's the case, then is the rates market sending a very different signal than the equity market in terms of 2020 and what we can expect with growth?
Yes, I think, to some extent, both rates and equities are telling you that the Fed is very unlikely to take back the insurance cuts. So even if the consumer remains resilient, I think what we saw in the dot plot is very clear. Even the hawks don't really want to take back all of the insurance cuts. So if that's a positive tailwind for equities or all risk assets, I think that's fair. And that tells you why interest rates probably, the 10-year doesn't go above 2%. Where I think the signals are slightly different is the fact that the equity market takes this trade deal to say, okay, all downside risk behind us. And the rates market saying, not so fast. All we've had is one tail risk being removed. We still have to deal with, look at the Eurozone PMIs. I'm actually very surprised that Treasuries this morning want to ignore that and just sort of go off the China positive data. There's still a lot of global growth headwinds, I think, for the U.S. next year.
Priya, going into 2020, there's a view that the Fed is on hold through the whole of the year. I get a sense from you over the last couple of months that you don't think they are on hold. In fact, you think rates are going the other way, lower again. You still think that, Priya?
I still do. I think the Fed has told us that the bar to cut is higher than it was over the last couple of months. So, that's fair. But if the consumer shows any signs of losing momentum, and this is where I think the business investment side is key, because it's very clear that U.S. business investment has slowed pretty dramatically this year because of the uncertainty. I would argue it's an uncertainty shock, and that takes a while. And if that doesn't go away, then at some point it's going to affect the labor market and therefore the consumer. So we expect the Fed to actually restart easing by the middle of next year.
Something we try to do on Bloomberg Surveillance is speak to grizzled pros like Priya Misra of TD Securities about whatever the uproar of the moment is. Priya, based on my reading coming back among particularly the gloom crew, the world's going to end, like, John, at 11 a.m. this morning or something.
Is that right?
We dash into the repo liquidity world ending.
So release the video.
Today or Wednesday. Get the video up before the world ends. Priya, should we have a sweat about the repo market into year end?
So this is where, I am worried about the economy, but on repo, I actually think the Fed has understood what's happening and they're using all the tools they have. And I think these tools are effective. So I'm actually not as worried on the repo year end, and all strategists or repo people are sort of divided into two camps. Those, I think it's all going to end on December 31st. It's as bad as last year. I actually think last year was very different. You had the Fed that was letting the portfolio run off. They were not doing any temporary repo operations. What we heard last week was the Fed is actually now pumping almost $500 billion of repo around the turn. And some dealers are obviously capital constrained, balance sheet constrained. But the fact that these operations are all getting oversubscribed actually tells me that there are other dealers out there who are able to expand their balance sheet, take the Fed liquidity and distribute it in the system. So with the fact that the Fed is using this, plus they're adding to reserves permanently, I think they've understood, they've acknowledged the problem, which is what resulted in that September spike, and they're addressing it.
Priya, this raises a really interesting question. If you take the catastrophic view off the table, the end of the world, that repo will ignite, that we've all been worried about. If you take that off the table, let's take a look at that $500 billion of stimulus, essentially, that the Federal Reserve has pumped into the financial system, especially if dealers are using it to make cheap loans. How much is that supporting risk assets? How much has that driven the rally more than people have really given credit to?
So, the Fed will keep telling us that it's not QE, but if you look at reserves or look at the balance sheet, the Fed's balance sheet is growing. Now, I actually don't agree that this should be very positive for risk assets, but it's a sentiment issue. We've heard from the Fed for the last 10 years that QE helps boost risk asset, and I think that is part of it. It's definite stimulus into the repo market. I don't know if it should result in higher stock market, but I think it is absolutely. The Fed balance sheet is growing by a lot over the next month.
Well, a lot. Does that vector matter? I mean, does the rate of change change of the Fed balance sheet growth matter if they do it in a gradual, measured way? Does that solve a lot of problems that you don't get with the abruptness that we've seen the last number of quarters?
So the studies between stock and flow, they're fairly mixed. I would argue it's a combination of both the stock and the flow that matters. But, over the last 2 months, they've already injected $200 billion. Remember, they're also buying bills. And my view is, I know they're only saying into the second quarter, I think they're buying bills almost all of next year. Because in an ample reserve regime, the Fed operations should not happen. That means the Fed needs to buy $500 billion of bills to offset these repos over time. So that's a pretty big stock and flow. Whichever way you look at it, it's a huge increase in the balance sheet.
Terrific briefing. Thank you so much. Priya Misra, TD Securities, Head of Global Rate Strategy. And this has been good. This is what we like to do, folks, on a Monday. David Kelly, back-to-back with Priya Misra, gets it done. There's some interesting perspective there. Agree or disagree?
I think there is a tension right now between things are looking pretty good for risk assets, but not so great for the economy. And are those two things consistent? Hearing that from Priya Misra, and we're also hearing that from David Kelly, a very interesting tension.
I'm glad you bring it up because we got to frame it as sub 2% GDP. And John, am I right? A great certitude we're going to get above 2%. But how above 2% do we get is a mystery.
Looking at the economic forecast on the Bloomberg into 2020, 1.8% is your median economic forecast on the street. 2020 GDP growth for the United States.
You found that on the Bloomberg?
Just now, yeah.
And then there's a question of stall. Meanwhile, you have right now, if you take a look at junk bond yields, they've fallen to the lowest since 2014. 5.25% yield on high yield bonds, and yet that is being justified by the relative valuation compared to cash and compared to rates.
Can I mention something?
Please do.
Today is the 75th anniversary of the other Pearl Harbor, and nobody pays attention to it because it was at the end of the war. Was Christmas Eve, X number of days later. Michael Barr, you know what I'm talking about.
I was flying back from Paris, and on the plane, there was a World War II veteran who got the Purple Heart, and everybody gave him a standing ovation.
That is very cool.
That was cool.
That is really
We had a family friend who was a captain there, and be direct, he was never the same. And it's never had the press. We think of Tom Hanks and Private Benjamin, but this is today the Battle of the Bulge. This is Bloomberg. Good morning. Futures 14.
Let's get a check on the news now. We've got Michael Barr. Michael.
Lisa, Tom, John, thank you very much. The House is expected to vote on Wednesday on a full vote for impeachment against President Trump. There are some lawmakers who are running for re-election in Trump districts who find themselves in a tricky position. Democratic Congressman Jeff Van Drew from New Jersey is speaking out against impeachment. He's considering switching parties. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson will appoint new ministers to his cabinet today as he pushes ahead with Brexit after securing a historic vote in last week's UK election. The Prime Minister's victory means he has the power now to enforce his vision for leaving the European Union and reshaping the British economy following the biggest win for his Conservative Party since Margaret Thatcher 32 years ago. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 700 journalists and analysts, more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. John.
Michael Barr, thank you, sir. Session getting better and better. Equity futures up 15 on the S&P 500. We're positive 0.5%.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, You'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time. We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com. And feel the power. Member FINRA, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
You know it's out there somewhere, but you just keep missing out. I'm talking about your dream job. Now it's easier to find and land that perfect role with the LinkedIn app. Download it now and you'll have millions of opportunities in your pocket. LinkedIn has more openings than applicants. Build connections, keep in touch, and be the first to hear about new jobs. Don't miss out. Get your next big break and land your perfect job. Download the free LinkedIn app today.
At TUI, we can help you find the perfect family holiday. And with flights from 20 UK airports, we make getting there a whole lot easier. Book now with thousands of free kids' places, plus spread the cost and pay £0 deposit when you choose direct debit. Book online or in-store with one of our travel experts. At TUI, we cross the T's, dot the I's, and put you in the middle. Offer available on selected holidays for a limited time and subject to limited availability. Booking T's and C's apply. At all protected.
Ho, ho, ho. Who made a list this year?
I want a new phone, one with amazing cameras, ultra-wide lens, of course, live focus video. Well, it has to be 5G ready to stream all my films. Can it come with something awesome to listen to them through?
Darling, I think he was talking to the kids.
Get everything you want and more. Purchase a Samsung 5G ready device and claim a pair of silver wireless Galaxy Buds at no extra cost. Shop our 5G handsets in store or online at your local O2 store or o2.co.uk. 18 plus. Offer excludes Galaxy Fold 5G. Purchased by the 25th of the 12/19. Claim from Samsung within 30 days. T's and C's apply.
At Asda this Christmas, we're full of fun and games with a whopping 20% off toys in-store and online. Never mind the big day itself, that's the entertainment sorted for the whole of Christmas. Asda, let's make Christmas extra special. Selected stores online subject to availability. Excludes baby toys. Offer ends 19th of December. Minimum spend, carry bag and delivery charges may apply.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Youssef Kamel El-Din.
Miku Kumana from LGT Capital Partners is with us. The folks at the Riksbank moving a bit too early, moving back into positive territory, given this sort of broader global consensus that appears to be emerging in the Western world around negative rates?
No, because the Riksbank has been one of the pioneers in terms of negative rates. They were very aggressive, both in terms of their QE, as well as going deeply negative in terms of interest rates when everybody else was still very much standing on the fence. And they have actually achieved to have pretty stable nominal GDP growth over the whole recent period of time where others struggled. And they're also among the very few central banks that actually broadly met their inflation targets. So I think if they decide it's time for them to pare back, that's probably justified.
If I'm looking for an opportunity to trade with quite a bit of volatility, I'd be looking at which central bank could arguably surprise the most. The Bank of Japan or the Bank of England? Which of the two would you pick?
I think the Bank of England is more likely to go, even though I see that as a derivative of our view on the European Central Bank. Get Brexit done, just the exit is done. The new trade deal is still to be negotiated, so there might be some uncertainty there. So to answer your question, I think the BOE is more likely to surprise.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local listings, markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And it's 8:17 on Wall Street, and futures this morning are moving higher. Let's go to the first word breaking news desk for today's morning call. Here's Bill Maloney. Bill, good morning.
And good morning, Karen. U.S. futures are maintaining their gains since the last time we spoke. Dow futures up 61 points, S&P's gained 15, and NASDAQ futures rise by 47. The U.S. 10-year yield at 1.85%. Gold is little changed, and Shanghai rose 0.6% overnight, while European markets are also trading higher by 2% gains in the UK. Back in the U.S. on the economic front at 8:30, Empire Manufacturing. At 9:45, Market U.S. Manufacturing PMI. And at 10 o'clock, the NAHB Housing Market Index. In other news, Boeing may suspend production of the 737 MAX as uncertainty grows. Shares are down 4% in the pre-market. Utility PG&E is plunging 23% pre-market after California